I'm Dan from Somerford Associates, and today we're going to be talking about Splunk Real User Monitoring. Here we are in our Observability Cloud within Real User Monitoring, and we can see that we're in an application summary dashboard for our application, the Webinar Store. We can see a very high-level view of this application here in this dashboard. We have a number of graphs and tables, things that show page views and JavaScript errors, and here we can see in the middle JavaScript errors that have been grouped together by stack trace to really enable our developers to zoom in on those lines of code that are causing problems for our end users. Speaking of which, we've had some reports that those people are suffering latency issues when trying to check out from our store. So I'll click through here and we'll get a much more detailed view of what's going on. We can see here in the UI metrics tab that we do have some latency issues here, and we're going to focus in around our front end cart/checkout. We can see that the time for people to check out is up at about 3 seconds, which is higher than we would expect. So I'll click through here and find out what's going on. So that'll bring us through here, and we're going to see at the bottom of the screen, we're going to see the tag spotlight. This is where we can see information about the users that are accessing our application. Stuff like the user agents and where the people are browsing from. It can help you identify any patterns to see if the issues are affecting all users or just those on a specific browser or browsing from a specific location. We don't have any of those sort of patterns here, so we're going to check out some user session traces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look for a trace that has an abnormally long amount of time. So we have one here that's taken 5 seconds, which is a lot longer than we would expect. So I'll click through there. This will bring us through to a view of the trace. It's built up from a number of spans. Scroll down a little bit. And we can see here that this doc fetch portion is significantly longer than we would expect, and it's taken up most of the time of our checkout process. I can hover over it here and we can see that the application is causing a large amount of the delay, a large amount of the latency. So I want to find out what's going on, and we can do that quite easily. We just click through here onto this workflow. It's the checkout workflow, and we'll see what's going on. As it loads in, wow, we can see, at first glance, we can see where the problem lies. So we can see here overall workflow for our application. We can see that the payment service node is flashing red. It probably indicates there's a problem going on there. So if we hover over it and click, we get this little pop-up here, and we can see that the payment service is present in a large number of our errors, 89%, and not only that, Splunk Real User Monitoring has actually identified that this service is the root cause for all those errors. So we've got 89% of the errors there. The root cause is the payment service. That's a large amount of the errors, but it's not all of them. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to zoom into the logs and find out what's going on within this payment service. I'll click down here on logs. This will bring us through to Log Observer Connect. Now that's going to look a little bit different. If you've been using Splunk to monitor logs, we can see here in Log Observer Connect, it looks a little bit different. We don't need any SPL experience, we don't need any coding experience to interrogate these logs. So what we'll do is we'll have a little look at some of these logs, and we can see here down in the log table we have a number of errors and info. I'll just click through here onto this first one that's showing an error, and within that log we have a number of fields and a number of values. We can read here in the message, failed payment processing through Buttercup Games payments because of an invalid API token. We can also see here there's a version field, and we're at version 350.10. So to find out what's going on, I'm going to go down here in the fields, We'll take a look at the version field. See what we've got. We've got a couple of values there for the version field. We've got the latest version of our application, 350.10, and we also have 350.9. So if I take a look at that, we'll just include those logs there and it will filter just to show those logs. We can see here that all the logs that contain that version are throwing up a severity of error. It's interesting to us. I'll take that filter away. And I'll take a look at the other version of the application and see what we can see there. So severity already is an info level, so we click through into that log. We can see here the message saying that the transaction has been processed, successful transaction. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to aggregate by version and severity, just to confirm what I think is already happening. I'm going to apply that group. This graph here is going to illustrate what I thought was happening. We can see here that all of the logs that contain the version number of 0.10 also contain error, and we can see that the version that has 0.9 also contains info. So we'll go back into one of these error ones. We can see here that it's due to an invalid API token. This will enable us to roll back our application version, fix these latency issues for our end users. So just to summarize, using Splunk Real User Monitoring, what we've been able to do is we've been able to understand what real users were experiencing during checkout. We've leveraged the directed troubleshooting to isolate that the payment service was the source of errors due to the app version being deployed with an invalid token, and that's enabled us to roll back to restore services very quickly. We can roll back to the previous version of the application and restore service to our end users. Thank you for joining me for this video. If you'd like to know more, check out our website, Somerford Associates.